Welcome back to Outbreak News This Week, your source for all the news about worms and germs. Here's your host, microbiologist and editor of OutbreakNewsToday.com, Robert Harriman.
Well, welcome back to the program. Continuing on our topic of free market healthcare, my next guest, Dr. Keith Smith, is well known in this world of free market healthcare, and he is the head of the Surgery Center of Oklahoma, where you can see the price of the surgery right there on the website. Hello, Dr. Smith, and welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. I'm having a great time with today's show. I usually cover infectious diseases all the time, but this topic is really near and dear to me also. And your surgery center caught my eye a few years ago as something so unique and so needed. Can you discuss to my audience the overall business and medical philosophy of the Surgical Center of Oklahoma?
Well, Dr. Steve Lantier and I opened the center in 1997. We'd been working in the big hospitals for long enough to see that we didn't want to do that for the rest of our careers. The prices were escalating so that patients couldn't afford the care, and actually the quality was decreasing at the same time. So just fed up with that, we decided we could complain about it the rest of our lives or do something about it. So we were able to buy an old, just about to fail facility, and we decided that we would do things differently. We would provide the highest quality of care at very reasonable prices, and we would never accept any money from the government. So there weren't all of the problems that accepting government money imposes on a business, particularly a healthcare business. And we've been open almost 20 years now, and we've never deviated from those principles. Just the other day, I was telling somebody that the most interesting thing, I think now looking back, is that this high-quality facility, and we're known all over this region, not just for our pricing, but our quality. We take care of all the Division I athletes in Oklahoma and the professional athletes. So it was interesting who didn't show up. And it was the insurance carriers. And that began to instruct us on what was wrong with healthcare. And we began to understand that there were a lot of people getting rich in healthcare, taking advantage of the brokenness and the lack of free market. So our free market principles, my personal interest and study of Austrian economics, and that really is the philosophy behind our facility, is never ever to consider an exchange with anyone we deal with that's not mutually beneficial. So we basically feel like and have attempted to guide ourselves very simply by the golden rule. And that was very clear almost 8 years ago now when we put our prices online, and there were people who found our prices and understood they could now afford the surgery they thought was unaffordable. People printed out our prices and took them to their local hospital and said, step up or I'm flying to Oklahoma City. And that's been going on now. We treat patients from all 50 states now except Hawaii, many Canadians. We had another unfortunate Canadian that was on a 3-year waiting list for a hysterectomy in spite of her bleeding. We see these stories all the time, and these tearful patients just, they show up armed with a lot of skepticism because it seems too good to be true, and they walk out our biggest fans and some of our friends. So it's been an incredible journey, and we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot about what's wrong with healthcare and how the United States healthcare operates as a scam. It really is a cartel, and our putting our prices online has accomplished that as well. So it's been fun that my personal philosophy matches my business philosophy, and then that makes practicing medicine very, very enjoyable and great for everybody, especially we think the patients.
Excellent. And I just like to mention to my audience that The website is incredibly user-friendly, so I encourage you to check it out. We'll go over that in a moment. But let's give them a picture of what you're talking about. I would like to go over a surgery as a potential patient. I need an Achilles repair, a surgery to repair my torn Achilles tendon. The price on your website states $5,730. What do I, as the patient, get for that amount of money? And will I be receiving any surprise bills later on for this or that reason?
Well, that was one of the things we decided to do when we put our prices online, was to bundle every imaginable thing that goes into providing that service. So the $5,730 covers the surgeon's fee, my anesthesia fee, and the Surgery Center of Oklahoma's facility fee, and any supplies that are needed. And $5,730 is a lot of money, but as any sound economist will tell you, it's a lot of money, but compared to what? You
Right.
always have to have some sort of comparison in mind. And that same surgery we've seen bills for typically is somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 at a so-called not-for-profit hospital. So while $5,730 is a lot of money, many times that is an amount that a patient and their family and loved ones, and we've even seen churches have bake sales and fundraisers to help people to come up and secure these funds so that they're not facing, payments for the rest of their lives, or worse, bankruptcy. So and I'm told by industry insiders, the only thing more fascinating and radical than our putting prices online is that they're bundled, right, and that everything is together. The reason that is so radical is that as an anesthesiologist, I sat across the table from a surgeon, and I knew his fee, and he knew my fee. And everybody knew what the facility fee was. So everyone had to be transparent, not just with the public, but with each other in order to generate these numbers. And that's one reason why the big hospitals have so much trouble with providing bundled fees, is they don't want anybody, particularly the doctors who are actually doing the work, they don't want anybody to know the extent to which they're really ripping people off. So the price you see online includes everything, and there's a lot of people taking advantage of that.
Now, if so, you said, so if I live in Oklahoma City, is that where you're located at?
Yes, yeah. Right in the heart. Yes.
Okay, so if I decide to go down to the hospital down the corner, they're going to charge me $30,000 for the same surgery?
Yes, typically the spread is anywhere from 6 or 10 to 1. So wow. You could take almost any price on our website, multiply that by 6 or 10, depending on what part of the country you live in and how closed shop, really cartelized the industry is in that area, and you'll find the price that the typical not-for-profit hospital is going to give you. Now, they probably won't give you a price. They'd much rather surprise you with these huge bills, because no one would agree to a price that they would actually tell you.
Oh, they probably don't even know what the price is.
They don't. They're getting better at it.
Yeah.
The other thing you have to remember is the price they tell you is only theirs. It doesn't include the surgeon or anesthesia.
Right.
Yeah, 6 to 10 times generally is the multiplier that we found on our prices. And we didn't use any kind of reference to make our prices. I called the ear, nose, and throat surgeon into my office and said, how much do you want for a septoplasty or a set of ear tubes? And I knew how long that case took. I know about what it costs to operate an operating room for 30-minute increments. So as an anesthesiologist, I bill for my time, and this is a pretty simple spreadsheet. When you start to look at it, we basically bill for time and materials, just like anybody else. And that's how we put our pricing together. We didn't use any sort of reference pricing. We just sat across the table and looked at each other and thought, well, what's fair? What's fair compensation? Mm-hmm. Where do we feel like we can look a patient in the eye and without blinking say, here is what I do and here's how much it is. And that's how we came up with our pricing, which interestingly is less than what Medicaid pays the big hospitals here in Oklahoma City for the very same procedures.
Wow.
We found that out later.
Fascinating. Now, do you take insurance of any type?
We don't, and we do. We occasionally we will file an insurance claim for a patient who has insurance who pays us cash, just as a courtesy.
Mm-hmm.
We do have one contract that's remaining with one insurance carrier, but I think that probably is not going to last much longer because it's such a hassle.
Sure.
and you have to hire people to deal with them, and they tell you they're going to pay you, and you do the surgery, and then they say, psych, we're not going to pay you for whatever reason, and then you're stuck, and then you're a collection agency trying to get the money from the patient. It's just horrible dealing with them.
Yeah. So I guess you kind of answered my next question. I was going to ask you, what is your real beef with health insurance?
Well,
and the companies, yeah.
Well, the problem I have with health insurance in the United States is it's not health insurance. It used to be, where it actually covered health uncertainty. People buy policies to cover their house burning down, but they don't expect their homeowner's policy to change a doorknob or to paint a door.
Right.
And so what health insurance has become in the United States is prepaid health care. And then there are all the money changers that are between the patient and the physician extracting their toll. And ultimately what you wind up buying is ridiculously overvalued just to pay all of the trolls that are part of the exchange that bring no value. So the other problem I have with health insurance in the United States, the way it's set up, most people don't understand, the insurance companies, you would think, would make more money if they steered everyone to a facility like mine that was extremely high quality and low cost. Because intuitively you would think we collect our premium, we pay the claim, and the difference is our profit. Well, it's more complicated. One of the sources of revenue that is just unbelievable for these insurance companies is a process called claims repricing or selling discounts or sharing savings. What that means is the insurance company would rather receive a $100,000 bill than a $20,000 bill because they are going to discount that $100,000 bill down to some amount, let's say $30,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to go to the employer typically and say, hey, we saved you $70,000, and per the terms of our agreement, we are now going to split that savings. And the employer shrugs and thinks, wow, they just saved me $35,000, not knowing the insurance company actually makes more money by seeking out the most gigantic charge they can find, and many times those are prearranged. Mm-hmm. I've even been told that the insurance carriers will go to a hospital and say, please mark your prices up so that we can maximize our claims repricing revenue.
Oh, that's messed up.
So everybody is duped into thinking that, it's money in, money out. But the truth is that the insurance companies want no part of high quality and reasonable pricing because it robs them of this scam, this repricing of claims. And there are no insurance carriers that want to deal with the Surgery Center of Oklahoma. There is one, and they did it at gunpoint because an employer told them, you're going to sign up Surgery Center of Oklahoma or we're going to fire you as our carrier. So that the claims repricing is, I did a video blog on this called the $100 aspirin. If anybody wants to go through that again, you almost need to take nausea medicine, to understand it and just get through it. But you realize the insurance companies want to see a $100 bill for an aspirin.
That's incredible.
And we give aspirins away here, but they want to see a $100 aspirin so they can discount it and charge somebody for the discount achieved, typically the employer group.
Yeah, so essentially the concept of insurance as a measure of risk doesn't exist anymore as far as health.
That's correct.
As far as health
That
insurance.
is correct. And the federal government, we can beat on insurance companies and hospitals all we want, but it's real important for everybody to keep their eye on the ball, and it's the federal government. all of this is on them.
Yeah.
Because over the years, the lobbyists have gone to Washington, D.C. and have purchased favors from the tyrants in Washington. And the reason the healthcare system looks like it does, the reason the free market is largely absent, is the result of the cronyism and the favors sold to all of the big corporate players by the folks in Washington, D.C., who just peddled influence, basically.
Yeah, so and you're kind of segueing into the next part of the stuff I want to talk about, as I did with my first guest, who's also in free market healthcare. I want to delve into a little bit of politics, considering this is an election year. And I personally see Obamacare as a massive failure. Not many people would disagree with me. But I'm not sure if it was purposely used that way to usher in maybe single payer. What can you say about Obamacare to date, successes and or failures, and do you see single payer in our horizon?
Yeah, and I'm pretty apolitical. I'm more of in the Ron Paul camp.
Okay.
There's a lot of blood on the hands of legislators on both sides of the aisle. Obamacare, believe it or not, has pluses and minuses. The primary minus is that whether it was their intention or not, it is crushing any semblance of the free market in the insurance industry. So it seems like things are edging towards single payer, particularly as you see the latest news with United Health and Aetna and everybody else pulling out of these exchanges, really just leaving one carrier. So it's starting to look, whether that was their intention or not, that it's going that way. But the good part of Obamacare is two parts. One, it proves the government can't get anything right, and maybe people will finally get that through their head. The second part, though, is as a favor to the big insurance carriers, the Obamacare folks decided to allow these giant deductibles. And what that's done, inadvertently, very unintentionally, has created a consumer market. Much of the healthcare people are buying these days now, thanks to Obamacare, is coming out of their pocket. And people who spend their own money want to know how much is it, and they want to know up front. Mm-hmm. And so this sticker shock, this curiosity about how much is this hernia going to cost after all, that is now present. And I don't think that's what the central planners had in mind. And so we have a lot of patients. In fact, the fastest growing part of our business are people who have these Obamacare exchange plans. And they walk in, and I've already visited with them, and they promised to leave their Obamacare card in the car. And they come in and they pay us $3,050 to have their hernia replaced. And that is less money out of their pocket than if they used their Obamacare card somewhere else.
Incredible.
And so that is getting even people with whom you and I might not be politically aligned thinking about the power of the free market and the morality of the free market, and that it cannot be applied in an industry any more powerfully or any more importantly, I think, than healthcare.
Well, you're almost a lone voice out there, then. listen to these.
Actually, no.
I mean, listen to the politicians I'm talking about.
Oh, no, the politicians. They just, I don't fear. When people ask me, "Are you afraid the government is going to come shut you down?" I said, "No, I'm afraid they're going to come try to help us because they never get anything right." Mm-hmm. I wanted to stay away. Yeah, we're being copied. I don't know if you're aware. I mean, we're being copied, and this model's being copied. It's proliferating all over the United States.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yeah, and so it's very exciting, and I think this is an unintended consequence of the central planners' ideas, and we're beginning to see a real growing and exciting application of free market principles in healthcare. This country hasn't seen, I would argue, since the 1950s.
Yeah, my first guest on the show, he has one of those direct primary care practices in Wichita, Kansas.
Oh, yeah. Was it Josh Umber?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Oh,
fantastic.
He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he's basically saying the same thing. Obamacare has been a boom for his business. I mean, so, yeah. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, let me go ahead and we all know about Bernie Sanders. And so, in your view, could a European or Canadian health system work in this country?
Well, no, it doesn't work in those countries.
Absolutely.
I mean, the first patients that arrived in the United States into my facility after we put our prices online were Canadians. And that was incredible. Mm-hmm. I mean, what more evidence do you need of a failed system than people were flying to Oklahoma City to have a hysterectomy or to have their child's tonsils removed? I mean, because they were on months or years waiting list, not to have the surgery, but to be seen and evaluated for whether they could have the surgery. So those systems are a disaster. If people really want to know the truth, then all they really have to do is do an online search for Swedish healthcare, and the articles that will pop up are all about how Sweden is privatizing their healthcare system. The Foundation for Economic Education, the Mises Institute, those guys are writing these articles all the time, and incredibly, even the English, even the British, the national health system is failing, and there are clinics popping up all over the place that people are paying out of pocket to go to because these systems don't work. I mean, central planning, it doesn't work because there is not a rational pricing mechanism so that there are signals with prices regarding shortages or surpluses. So no producer or service provider knows what the public needs or what should be provided. So that it's a mess. It doesn't work. It has never worked anywhere. And the people who would like to claim that, the people are healthier in foreign countries that have socialized systems and they live longer, they're really looking at propaganda that's put out by the likes of the World Health Organization and other just ridiculously biased, politically motivated organizations.
All right, Dr. Smith, I got about 1 minute left, so let me go ahead and throw this question at you concerning the other side of the aisle, the Republicans. And I saw Ted Cruz say, I will repeal Obamacare and replace it with health care that's personal, portable, affordable, blah, blah, blah. So what do you think he means? Repeal it and replace it with what?
Well, replace it with a brand of cronyism that will line his pockets. I mean, that's what politicians do.
Yeah.
I've told Republicans you should say repeal and acknowledge. Acknowledge that Washington, D.C. has no business in the healthcare business at all.
Very good.
To repeal and replace is like substituting vodka for gin with an alcoholic and thinking you're going to get a different result. Now, I'm not interested in anybody planning my life for me, whether it's Ted Cruz or anybody on the other side of the aisle. I say let the American people and let the market decide what is needed from the health industry marketplace, not somebody with a grand scheme for how to plan my life. I'm not interested.
Very good. All right. Well, Dr. Smith, would you like to give my audience the website to Surgery Center?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's surgerycenterok.com. And for those of you that don't feel like Oklahoma is close enough to you and you need something done, I would encourage you to check out the FMMA. That stands for Free Market Medical Association, FMMA.org. And you might find that there's a surgery center or imaging facility or a direct primary care provider like Josh Umber near you.
Very good. All right. Well, Dr. Keith Smith, thank you, sir, for your time and your expertise. And I appreciate you coming on the show once again.
No, thanks again for having me.
You bet. All right. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for today, Free Market Healthcare. And I'll be putting some of these websites on my website, outbreaknewstoday.com. Time's up. I'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Outbreak News This Week with Robert Harriman. If you missed any part of today's program, you can listen to the podcast anytime on our website, OutbreakNewsToday.com. Make sure to join us here next week for Outbreak News This Week with Robert Harriman.